Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be doing my 14.12 jungle tier list. So if you're for content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. There were a couple of changes towards the jungle this patch. We obviously saw Yi get nerfed back down. Obviously he was overpowered and they acted pretty swiftly on it. He received a bunch of things to kind of help him within low and mid elo. He was thriving there. They've brought some of his power back, so he's in more of a balanced state. So with this, we saw changes towards Rek'Sai, who was overperforming in elite play. We saw changes towards Talon, directed towards mid, but indirectly hit jungle. A couple of champions being added on, so Neferi is going to be added as she received direct jungle changes, and Zyra, because she's began to see play within the LPL, and that's kind of like increased her generalistic play rate. And then Skarner received some changes, nerfing down top lane as it was overperforming, but indirectly hits jungle as well. So let's cover the tier list. We're going with Silas is still within the D tier, alongside Rengar. Both these champions are still pretty bad for just mid and low elo. In Silas's case, he's a very feast or famine champion. If you're not able to snowball an advantage, he can really suffer within the game. You tend to opt into like your Electrocute or your Dark Harvest keystone page, and then go something like the Lichbane into a Burstia orientated build, and just try and play for snowball. In Rengar's case, he's an incredibly elite skewed jungler, something I would very much recommend avoiding until you're in the higher ranks and you're willing to put a lot of games into learning the pick. Even then, it's often better to just put time into other champions, and you can find a lot more success there. Moving on to the C tier, Neferi is going to lead us off here. Neferi, however people want to call her. She's fine within the jungle. She's obviously a scaling pick. That is one of her strengths. She does have some build variations which do need to be like refined. Things like Eclipse and Opportunity look to be pretty performant here over the likes of Profane Hydra, but then limited sample size, so it could be a case of like when they do see play rate pick up, that they just don't support the same level of win rate. But it's not looking great. She's kind of underperforming. Obviously, a low elo skewed champion, scaling tends to be attributed to that. She's kind of supposed to be this easy to play assassin, like an introductory pick, and you can really feel it. She sits low C tier. I wouldn't be surprised if they nerf her down and give her some jungle buffs, because she's overperforming in mid lane at the moment, but they want to like kind of support jungle Neferi. Moving on, we still have Pantheon. So Pantheon, obviously, supported to a degree within the jungle. His Q does a bit more damage to jungle monsters. He's playable. Like, no, he by no means is bad. There's someone within high elo Korea who's finding a lot of success on the pick. On very standard things you see on Pantheon, going your Q into W max, going the likes of Eclipse, I believe, and finding success in that variation. PTA, I believe, is his keystone of choice. Definitely worth checking out, but for generalistic play, doesn't really support the kind of win rate I'd like to see, so he sits within the C tier. Zed, obviously, kept weak for reasons of frustration. Has a really aggressive clear within the jungle. His passive does 200% with no cooldown to monsters, which is very, very nice. It gives him very good secures on objectives, and chunking out epic large monsters whenever they are lower on health. He does fine. Obviously, it's kind of akin to Rengar, where you want to play a lot of this champion to really feel like good about it and find the success needed. I'd recommend avoiding it past that. Lee Sin, underperforming at the moment, is getting buffed in 14.13. He is what I believe to be receiving 20 W shielding, 20 increased W shielding, alongside one other change. But for the moment, 14.12, he is still underperforming. Obviously, his free core items got nerfed back along. That was from the Sky Eclipse and Sterex. On top of this, he was win rate inflated by a bug, which obviously kind of warped people's perception on the champion, but he belongs in the C tier at the moment. Hecarim has been weak for a while, but there are build variations people are going. The Zeke's Herald seems to be quite a popular one. Definitely, Zeke's Herald, Zeke's Convergence, I believe it's called actually. Seems to be something that people are adapting to. I'd recommend like looking around builds, seeing what works for you, and you should be able to find success on the pick. But for the most part, isn't quite there at the moment, so he belongs in the C tier. Nilly also going to be here. Obviously, a very elite skewed pick, very reliant on the snowballing, being very aggressive, using your tempo around the map. Things you don't really see from like your Emerald to Gold player. Obviously, even encapsulating Diamond to a degree, you really just don't see that until like your Masters Plus. And yeah, she underperforms here, so she belongs in the C tier. Eve got over nerfed. She should probably get buffed back up. I imagine she will at some point. Does tend to be a bit better with an elite play. Will one tricks really make this champion work quite nicely there, and more average play, just not finding that level of success anymore, belongs in the C tier. Moving on to the B tier, so we are leading with Zyra. She is underperforming compared to average picks, but still able to find a level of success if you put the time in, learn the clears, learn how to do like the Baron stuff with like instantly taking it and like really fast objectives, using your ultimate to like increase the duration of your plants, dropping down loads of W's. There's lots of like optimization to be done here, combined with correct itemization. You should be able to find success on the pick, but for the average player, I believe she belongs in the B tier at the moment. But when people kind of learn it and improve on it, I could definitely see it rising up the tier list. Talon got a bit better within the jungle. Obviously, they buffed the outgoing damage, I believe, on the W, which does help here. They did end up nerfing his W damage down low for jungle monsters, but from 105% to 100% flat. On top of this, they made it so his Q now scales with attack speed, so base attack speed now goes into that, which should be quite nice. Makes that feel a lot better. Belongs in the B tier for the moment. You can find success on this pick. Once again, akin to like Zyra, if you learn the champion well, get the invades down, your raptor steals, stuff like this, you should be able to have a lot of success. Kind of akin to something like a Belveth, for example. Elise is fine. She is still a very early game elite skewed pick. That tends to be where a lot of her strength lies. Itemization, you're still looking at like your Lichbane, your Shadow Flame, Kango Storm Surge if you're snowballing. Once again, Medjay's is a crucial pickup for the likes of Elise and Eve. AP junglers just in general really spike with this item quite a bit. They massively amp their clear speed. Echo is another one here. But yeah, once again, elite skewed. Bit on the weak side at the moment, belongs within the B tier. Graves just hasn't really picked up. He was obviously a bit better with the IE and Collector being overpowered at the beginning of 14.10. With these items being nerfed down, he goes from like A tier to B tier. It looks like crit is still better than lethality. However, you can go the likes of opportunity into like 4 crit items, and that should be relatively successful. Graves, a solid B tier option. He is being buffed in 14.13, I believe. I think his armor on his E is going up by 2 at all ranks, which should be a nice change for him. Helps definitely in elite play more than average play. Trundle has been underperforming for a bit, but he is helped by his ease of play. He is one of the easiest champions to play within the jungle. Very simplistic, stat-checky nature. Good against AD champions for the most part. Good against tanks. And that is some of the pool which you're going to see. Obviously, you want to use him primarily as a counter pick in games where he's going to be very valuable. Split push potential, also very aggressive. But he belongs in the beta at the moment. Definitely underperforming for how simplistic the champion is. Sejuani got a bit better with the W changes in 14.8, I believe, where they kind of try to unpro skew her. She still has the problem, obviously, of being a primary pro pick. She's still seeing a lot of pro play, one of the highest presence junglers at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to swing at her again. Maybe nerf down the Q flat damage early on into the game, and maybe buff up the E damage later on. I could definitely see that as being a route into helping top lane Sejuani a bit, helping out her in average play, combined with like nerfing down some of her pro presence. But she belongs in the beta at the moment. I'd recommend looking towards some of these Warmogs variations where you're like stacking health early on into the game. Zeke's, once again, looks like an item which you can opt into in Sejuani when you're looking to be a bit more supportive. There's definitely things which can work here. More of a supportive, tanky jungler, but I have seen people pilot it well, and you can definitely like snowball games if you have the like right pieces around you. Teemo, very low elo skewed jungler, but like one of the most aggressive low elo skewed junglers on this list. It's the only reason why he's really held up in the B tier. People could definitely make arguments for him being CLD, really depending on what rank you're in. But he does have a good clear. His E does 200% damage to monsters. His Q does double blind duration, and that is something really valuable, especially to lower mid-elo players. Definitely something which can function there. A solid B tier option. Once again, really aggressively scales. Shyvana does seem to find a bit more success in low elo at the moment. Obviously, there are 2 build variations primarily. You've got your full AP variation with like your Nashers, your Storm Surge, your Rabadons, and going around to like one-shotting people with your E. Or you have the Shojin Cosmic Drive, Shojin Leandri Riftmaker Cosmic Drive variation, where you play more into your like AP Bruiser, which I think is a lot more healthier of a variation of Shyvana. Does give her a bit more power with mid-elo. Once again, I'd recommend avoiding this champion. There's very big limitations to this pick, obviously not being very valuable as a champion until you're at level 6. If you go the AP route, you need to be stacking up your Dark Harvest early into the game if you are going down that direction. Just not a fan of the pick, but she belongs in the B tier at the moment. Gragas, incredibly elite skewed AP jungler. If you can snowball on this champion, you can take over games. But it can be quite hard if you're not able to like stay with the tempo of the game. Your clear can kind of feel a bit slow. Obviously, if you are ahead of the curve, then it can feel quite fast. You do have a lot of AoE. Single target through the W can be quite valuable. Single target percentage health damage could be quite valuable on that. But you see, W is also an AoE spell. Can really help with like Raptors clears, stuff like that. Gragas, solid beta champion. Yeah, there's not much more to it. He is very reliant on like snowballing and being a bit more elite skewed. Poppy belongs here. Very valuable counter pick option. If you're able to like pick this champion into heavy dash comps, the likes of Lee Sin or Rally obviously are both very much countered by this pick. The builds tend to lean more towards like your Sundered Sky Deadman's variations. Obviously, there are more tanky variations, but they just aren't as successful. If you want to have agency in the game, you do have like options like Dark Harvest, Halo Blades, even Electrocute can be quite nice. Aftershock if you're just looking for a bit more durability. If you're going down like a tankier variation, Night's Vow playing on supportive AD carry if they are able to be strong within the game. But yeah, Sundered Sky tends to be your most accessible, strong item if you're looking for a lot of agency. Kayn. Blue Kayn tends to be outperformed by Red Kayn at the moment. Obviously, they did a lot of work towards Red Kayn, trying to make it a viable option with the loss of Gore Drinker. Cinder Sky tends to be a solid option on this route. Same goes for Cleaver, Steric, stuff like that. Shojin can all be quite nice. Blue Kayn obviously can still function. First Strike did get nerfed in 14 point in this patch, I believe, which does definitely hurt Blue Kayn if he is going for the First Strike route. Obviously, you do have options in like Electrocute, Dark Harvest. They are definitely keystones you can opt into, but for the moment he belongs within the B tier. It would be nice to see some sort of like push towards maybe helping out Kayn in like a less frustrating way. Obviously the champion is very popular and it's nice to see him when he is piloted well. Kindred, a very elite skewed invade reliant champion, reliant on getting marks and like being strong early to kind of like support her later on. Kindred is not a scaling champion. This is a common misconception from like mid and low elo champions, mid and low elo players. You want to be able to like power early with like items like Kraken Slayer, Trinity Force. If you are going like Kraken Trinity pairing, there are other options. You can go like Collector, IE, stuff like that if you're going for like a more crit centric route. But yeah, Kindred, very reliant on snowballing early game. If you get the marks, like if you're sat at like 13 marks, then you can be powerful late game, but you are limited and prohibited by your range. That is something people commonly like miss with this champion, is just how valuable it can be to have those later on. But yeah, Kindred sits within the B tier at the moment, still a solid carry option. Belveth also here, once again, 80 elite skewed pick. That tends to be what a lot of the B tier are. Raptor invades are still incredibly valuable with this champion. Obviously, they've amped up the Q monster damage quite significantly, making it very powerful against the likes of Raptors, where you are taking these away, really punishing the enemy jungler whenever they try to look for ganks, and then being really powerful in like isolated duels or 2v2 situations where you can like make use of your kit and hopefully not get hard CC'd on like your E and stuff like that. But yeah, Belveth, solid B tier option. Skarner stays within the B tier, so Skarner obviously has very much been telegraphed as a pretty elite skewed champion. If you put the games in, you'll have success on this pick. The nerfs this patch definitely pushed him towards the bottom of the B tier though. Nerfs towards early passive damage, nerfs towards base health really do hurt jungle over top lane, where top lane is able to get the levels to kind of like make up for the loss of some of these or some of the damage for the compensation later on into the game. Jungle just isn't really making it to those later levels, so you really do feel it early on into the game. The clear's a bit slower, you're a bit less you're able to fight a bit less within duels, and yeah, you feel it. B tier champion, kind of sat towards the back end of the B tier. Shaco, AP, AD, both are viable within the jungle. Obviously, if you're going your AP route, you tend to go like your Deathfire Grasp, that's the wrong item, Blackfire Torch, into Liandry, and that tends to be like your AP core with Dark Harvest. Gives you great control around objectives, very good into melee champions, which can't really easily break your boxes. AD tends to be a bit better into ranged champions, where where they're more squishy, you're able to like accessibly get onto them. You're running like your Halo Blades, Profane Hydra, I believe, and then like some crit variations and some lethality variations. So options there. Shaco sits within the B tier. If you can like itemize him correctly and like play on your strengths, then yeah, he definitely rises up towards like a S tier, even if you can pilot the pick well. Nunu sits within the B tier. Still a very solid pick if you're able to like snowball throughout the game. Haha, funny pun intended, obviously. Liandry, Sunfire, both are solid options on this champion, especially Liandry if you're like snowballing throughout the game. There are AP variations, but I would recommend going more of a tank route. Unless you're really comfortable with champion, then yes, AP can be a solid option. But yeah, Nunu within the B tier at the moment. Wukong also within the B tier. If you get past 2 items, this champion is great. That is the main prohibiting factor of this pick. Is his early game. He struggles too much against some of the picks, and you're really reliant on like Trinity, the Sundered Sky combo, and then into like your Shojin, stuff like that. But yeah, sits within the B tier. Just prohibited by his weaker early game. Moving down to the B tier, so we have Rek'Sai and Master Yi. So Rek'Sai's case was nerfed down, was overperforming in high elo as a very solid pick with like your power and your W, and just your power and the kit in general. They took away some attack speed off the Q, combined with some base damage off the W, and yeah, it's watered down from the A tier to the B tier. In Master Yi's case, he was an S tier pick. They nerfed his Q monster damage, they nerfed his W cooldown, they nerfed its W damage reduction, and it drops him from the S tier to the B tier. If anything, we've probably overswung slightly, but they probably feel comfortable having him around a 50% win rate, so I could see them being happy with where he now sits, but he is within the B tier. Still a solid hyper carry option if you are looking for something which is like incredibly gold. Like if you can like give someone a lot of gold, but Yi is incredibly valuable and can really snowball throughout the game. Moving on to the A tier, so Mordecai is still a great pick within the jungle. Obviously, they nerfed him in the top lane, but then compensated with him within the jungle. He kind of sits towards the back end of the A tier. He's actually really unpopular now, which sucks because Mordecai's jungle is quite a nice champion to see. Honestly, it's refreshing compared to some of the other AP picks, which are really thriving at the moment. But yeah, Mordecai sits within the A tier. Obviously, tends to be a bit more mid and no elo skewed. His kit is relatively telegraphed, tends to be a bit stat checky, and yeah, A tier pick. Uda is also within the A tier, once again prohibited by really having a great core amount of items after Liandry. He really does spike on Liandry quite nicely though, gives him really good damage within team fights. Obviously, there are AD variations which can work quite nicely on him if you're able to like snowball throughout the game and like really make them work. Otherwise, I'd recommend just sticking to the Liandry and then like tankier variations. It's more of a solid way to play the pick, and most people presume that is the way you're going to go, so they'll pick around like you going AP primarily. Morgana seem playing competitive again, which is good to see. Honestly, I think Morgana is in a very solid spot at the moment. Blackfire Torch, Liandry's both very solid items on her, allows her to really dish out a lot of damage if you're able to consistently land Ws, and you've got good setup for your Qs. That is something which is quite important for this pick. And yeah, solid A tier pick. Tends to be a bit more low elo skewed though, so yeah, that is where she finds a bit more success. Kha'Zix, thriving in the A tier now. Grudge being buffed has also helped this pick on top of the buffs he did receive. So yeah, Kha'Zix in a really solid spot at the moment. Probably deserves to sit at the high end of the A tier, honestly, if anything. Yeah, really solid pick. Zac, still a very good AP jungler. Does primarily go like your Sunfires. There are Liandry variations which can work on this pick, kind of akin to Nunu. Once again, you're looking at E-maxing over W-maxing within the jungle. That is pretty standard at this point. On top of this, yeah, your build variations still pretty standard, like its spirits is quite nice, and then tanky variations like your Thornmail. You can pick up a Dark Seal, you can find success with like AP or hybrid AP variations, but I would never recommend going like full AP builds as you tend to be a bit too squishy. Zac tends to be a bit more mid-game skewed. doesn't really have great late game team fighting potential unless you're really ahead of the curve. Then yeah, you can function at all stages of the game quite powerfully. Echo, very reliant on snowballings, but still a very solid AP pick, kind of akin to Diana, who is also within the A tier. Both of these have really aggressive AP ratio monster modifiers, which when you get access to a lot of AP, they can clear the jungle quite quickly, and yeah, be really powerful picks. Briar, I get a lot of people. Okay, so the main talk with Briar is people do think this champion's quite bad at the moment because just how aggressively low elo skewed she is. This champion does not really see much success outside of Emerald, which obviously does prohibit the champion when you are looking to climb. I leave it within the A tier at the moment, as it does tend to be one of the strongest picks in the game below Emerald, where people just don't understand the kit. But yeah, when people do understand Briar, you do get punished for playing this champion. The ult is very telegraphed. The whole gameplay with the E, the W, it's all very telegraphed. And if you're not able to snowball throughout the game, especially like Emerald Plus, then yeah, you'll really get punished for it. Rammus, great counter pick option. Can't really put him any higher because of it, but yeah, he's close to the S tier. Very simplistic champion. Both Rammus and Kha'Zix definitely stand up above the rest of the A tier at the moment. Both are very solid options. Vi, once again, the point and click R is still a very valuable tool. Damage is quite nice. You've got the accessibility to Hail of Blades, Conqueror, both are very solid keystone options. Cinder Sky, Eclipse, both can be quite valuable in different circumstances. And then standard Bruiser variations, you can opt into some lethality options if you are snowballing throughout the game. Yeah, solid A tier pick. Moving on, we have Viego. So Viego also sits within the A tier. Bit weaker on newer Kraken Slayer compared to older Kraken Slayer. Can opt into some crit variations. I have seen some people do it and find decent amount of success. Other than that, you've still got like your Cinder Sky builds. Titanic Hydra can work quite nicely on this champion. Sterix Gauge later on can also be quite valuable. GA, stuff like that. Yeah, gives them a lot of power. Solid A tier option. Warwick, honestly, close to the S tier as well. Like, some of these champions within the A tier definitely could make the push into the S tier. Warwick does seem to be finding a lot of success at the moment. On Stride Breaker, Titanic variations, both of these can work. And then, like, your standard Bruiser builds. Bulk can be something you opt into heavy health stackers. And a very deserving A tier champion. Definitely close to the S tier at the moment. Jarvan, simplicity, reliability, if anything. Both these really do come with his champion quite nicely. His level 2 ganks can be quite oppressive, can like control a lane really early on to the game. And yeah, like some of the AP pairings you have in mid with like your A-Soul, stuff like that, can be really powerful with this pick. Sundered Sky, Shojin, both these items really valuable. Sterix, and then standard Bruiser variations. You can opt into some tank items. You can even opt into some lethality items if you are really aggressively snowballing. And then yeah, solid A tier pick. Xin Zhao also going to be next to Jarvan, kind of similar. Both these champions very simplistic, very clear game plan. Be very oppressive early on with either your dueling potential or your setup. Xin Zhao's ultimate, incredibly powerful tool, gives him lots of dueling capability. Hail of Blades tends to be a bit more. Hail of Blades is an option within solo queue. You can go Conqueror and find relatively equal amounts of success. Obviously, Conqueror better in extended trades. Hail of Blades better for burst, which can be quite valuable in dueling potential. But yeah, Conqueror, Hail of Blades, both could be quite valuable. Xin Zhao, very solid A tier pick. Moving on, we have Jax, very solid answer to Xin Zhao. Once again, this pick's still very strong within the jungle, has been strong for a while. People are pretty knowledgeable on it at this point. And yeah, mostly used as an answer to like heavy auto attack based comps. Solid A tier pick. Fiddlesticks, also within my A tier. He's fine. Obviously, he's played primarily by like one tricks. You don't tend to see many people just like first timing Fiddlesticks. Obviously, playing around vision control, your ultimate is still the best way to play this champion. His clear doesn't really have much like double camping anymore. Obviously, they tried to like eliminate that back when they did a bunch of jungle changes, and I believe season 13, like beginning of season 13. And yeah, it definitely did punish him. He now sits towards like middle A tier, but yeah, he's still a very solid champion when you're able to find the team fight angles. Rumble, probably still my most underrated jungle pick at the moment. I really do think Rumble should be played a lot more within the jungle. Those changes they did back along really did help him here, and it does provide him with some flexibility and gives you a solid gives you a solid AP jungle option if you are coming from like the top lane and you do play this champion. Obviously, people won't expect it as much. His team fighting is great. His damage early on into the game is incredibly aggressive, gives him some of the best dueling potential in the game. Very deserving of an A tier spot. Ivan does see competitive at the moment, which is good. Once again, this champion is really good if you're piloting it correctly, itemizing correctly. I believe redemption is primarily the way to go first. Obviously, you still want to opt into your dark seal if you are able to snowball, as you can accessibly get a lot of stacks on it pretty early on, especially if you're like helping out lanes quite a bit. Drake taking does tend to be a bit harder, but it is doable, especially if your teammates who are willing to cooperate. If you want something with very good supportive capabilities, he's a great pick. If you're looking for carry potential, I'd recommend other things, but yeah, Ivan, very solid A tier pick. Talia and Karthus did get nerfed down in 14.11, but they are still very solid A tier options. Obviously, tend to be a bit more elite skewed. Karthus, in this case, very strong on like the new Blackfire Torch. That item is really valuable on him. Can go like your Leandri, your Malignance, Rabadon's still very valuable on this pick, and his ult is still an incredibly powerful tool. Obviously, his clear got slowed down a bit. His dueling potential got nerfed a bit with the Q damage going down, but he's still a very solid A tier option. For Talia, I believe her Q damage went down from like 2 to 5, I believe, something like that on the rocks, which does hurt her that she does spam out this ability quite a bit. But in general, she's still a very strong AP jungler, tends to be very elite skewed. Obviously, both Talia mid and Talia jungle, very strong there. But yeah, still a very solid A tier option. Moving on to the S tier, we have 5 picks here. If you're looking for AP burn, both Brand and Lydia are great options here. Lydia tends to scale a bit better into like your higher ranks, but once again, both these picks incredibly valuable. Brand's team fighting potential is absurd. Just can turn fights even if he does die because of just how much damage he can damage over time he can provide. If you're looking for something with great early game, great gank setup, great dive potential, Volibear is the go-to. He is still incredibly powerful. Once again, kind of like Lilia, does scale relatively well into your higher ranks, being an early game skewed pick. Amumu's case, he's a bit more mid and low elo skewed. This champion doesn't find a huge amount of success Masters Plus, but his simplicity just gives him so much power. His great ult, or his ultimate, gives him his team a great amount of setup. Double Q can be really powerful for chase potential. His damage is relatively high. You do have variations on like your Leandri, your Sunfire, your Conqueror. Gives you a lot of damage output. Great S tier champion. And then Nocturne, if people itemize him correctly, you're going your Stride Breaker. He's one of the best champions in the jungle. His power at level 6 on the ultimate is super strong. Can really, really be oppressive for like 2 lanes at a time. If you can like dive mid, dive bot lane, play on bot lane is what I'd really recommend at the moment. Roll is in a very solid spot if you're able to get it ahead and rolling. Obviously, if you're playing, if like top is a really heavy dueling lane, maybe it's 2 champions with Ignite, but yeah, it gives you a lot of power there if you are looking to play for them. And yeah, he's in a great spot at the moment. Stride Breaker into Hex play, but you do have other options as a second item. Stride Breaker is the main thing here. If you're looking for a champion pool at the moment, I'd recommend these 5 champions. It gives you good AD damage in Volibear and Nocturne. It gives you good AP options in Lilia and Brand. And Amumu is a great tank option. I'd recommend playing these champions. You should be able to climb all the way to Masters. They're simple to play. If you put the games in, put the time in, learn the clears, should be have a great time. And yeah, these champions, great to play at the moment. My S tier. So those are my thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.